I never planned to ask him for anything. In fact, for years I had practiced the art of polite distance. Smiles at the mailbox, a nod over the fence, a brief greeting that ended before it began. He lived next door, a quiet presence with silver threading through his hair and a way of moving that suggested patience rather than urgency. People like him seemed carved from routine, solid and unchanging. People like me were still figuring things out. The evening I finally knocked on his door was born out of small disasters. The light in my kitchen had flickered out, the hallway fan refused to turn, and the sense of being alone grew heavier with every failed attempt to fix things myself. I told myself I was only asking for help because he was practical and nearby, not because the sound of his footsteps on his porch always felt reassuring. When the door opened, he looked surprised, then thoughtful, as if he weighed his response before offering it. "Yes," he said, voice calm, neither rushed nor distant. "I'm sorry to bother you," I began, suddenly aware of how quiet the street had become. "I can't get my lights working. I wondered if you might know what's wrong." He studied my face for a moment, not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but as though he was listening beyond my words. Then he nodded and reached for a small toolbox that seemed to have been waiting just inside the door. "Let's take a look," he said. Inside my house, he moved carefully, respecting the unfamiliar space. He asked before touching anything, explained each step as he worked. His presence didn't overwhelm the room, it steadied it. As the lights flickered back to life, relief washed over me, followed by something softer, harder to name. "Thank you," I said, meaning more than the fixed wiring. He smiled faintly. "Anytime. I should have let him go then. That would have been sensible." But as he turned toward the door, the quiet returned too quickly, and I found myself speaking before thinking. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. "As thanks." He hesitated, just long enough to show he was considering more than the offer. Then he agreed. We sat at the small table near the window, steam curling upward from our cups. Conversation came easily, flowing around ordinary things. Weather, books, the way the neighborhood had changed. He spoke of years spent building a life that no longer looked the way he'd imagined, not bitterly, just honestly. I spoke of beginnings that felt uncertain, of dreams that shifted shape the closer I came to them. Time stretched. The clock on the wall marked hours I hadn't planned to share, yet didn't want to give back. When he finally stood to leave, I felt the words form before I could stop them. "You don't have to rush," I said quietly. He looked at me then, truly looked, and I felt seen in a way that was gentle rather than exposing. "I should go," he replied, but his voice lacked conviction. We didn't cross any lines that night. We talked until the streetlights dimmed, and the world outside seemed distant. When he left, the house felt different, full, as if something had been added rather than taken away. After that, we found reasons to meet that were almost accidental. A borrowed book. A shared concern about a fallen branch after a storm. Each encounter layered meaning onto the last, building something neither of us named. He taught me how to tend the small garden behind my house, explaining the patience required to let things grow in their own time. I taught him how to navigate the new music apps on his phone, laughing when he pressed the wrong buttons. We learned each other's rhythms, the quiet places between words. One afternoon, rain trapped us on my porch, the sky heavy with promise. We stood close, listening to the steady drumming around us. "You seem different lately," he said, not accusing, just observant. "So do you," I replied. Silence settled, not awkward but expectant. I realized then that what I felt wasn't sudden or reckless. It had grown carefully, rooted in shared moments and mutual respect. "I didn't expect this," I admitted. "Neither did I," he said. "But I don't regret it." That was when I knew I didn't want him to leave. Not just the porch, not just that afternoon, but the space he had quietly begun to occupy in my life. Our connection unfolded slowly, marked by trust rather than urgency. We spent evenings talking, mornings walking the familiar streets with new eyes. He never assumed, never rushed. He asked and listened and waited. People noticed, eventually. The way we stood side by side at neighborhood gatherings, the ease between us. Some raised eyebrows, others smiled knowingly. We let the opinions pass like weather. One night, as we sat watching the sun dip below the rooftops, he spoke words that felt both careful and brave. "I don't want to overstep," he said. "But I care for you." The simplicity of it took my breath, not in a dramatic sense, but in the way truth often does. "I care for you too," I answered. Nothing else needed to be said. From that moment, our story wasn't about age or circumstance. It was about choice. Choosing to show up. Choosing to stay present. choosing to build something honest. He remained my neighbor, but he also became my confidant, my steady companion. The person I looked for in a crowd, the voice I listened for in the quiet. Sometimes I thought back to the night I had knocked on his door, anxious and unsure. I had asked for help with something small, not realizing I was opening the door to something much larger. And even now, when he stands to leave after an evening shared, I feel that same familiar thought rise within me, soft, certain, and true. I don't want him to leave.